The meadow was his kingdom, a vast expanse of green bathed in sunlight. He was the king, a magnificent bull. Muscles rippled beneath his thick hide. His horns, like polished ivory, glinted in the sun. He was power personified. Yet his eyes held a surprising gentleness. He moved with a quiet grace, his hooves barely disturbing the peace. Birds sang, unperturbed by his presence. He was a creature of the land, its protector and its heart. The meadow thrived under his watchful gaze, but fear like a shadow followed him. The villagers from a distance spoke his name in hushed tones. They admired his strength, envied his freedom. Yet they also feared him. His power was a threat, his presence a constant reminder of their own vulnerability. Fear, once sown, takes root quickly. It spreads like wildfire, consuming reason and logic. Soon whispers filled the village square. Tales of the bull's might grew more exaggerated with each telling. His gentle nature was forgotten, replaced by a monstrous image. The villagers huddled together, their faces etched with worry. They looked towards the meadow, their gazes filled with a mixture of awe and dread. The bull, oblivious to their fear, continued his peaceful existence. He grazed contentedly, his massive head bowed low.
One man, fueled by ambition and fear, saw an opportunity. He was the village headman, a cunning and ruthless individual. He yearned for the power the bull represented, a power he craved to control. He stood before the villagers, his voice laced with false concern. He spoke of danger, of the threat the bull posed. His words, like venomous snakes, slithered into the hearts of the fearful villagers.
The headman's words fell on fertile ground. Fear had blinded the villagers to reason. They saw only the threat, not the peaceful reality of the bull's existence. A plan began to form, a plan as cold and calculating as the man who orchestrated it. They would capture the bull, they decided. They would strip him of his freedom, his power. It was the only way. They convinced themselves to ensure their safety. The headman smiled, his eyes gleaming with triumph.
There was one obstacle, one the headman had anticipated. The bull was strong, impossible to overpower by force. They would need to use cunning to exploit the one weakness the bull possessed, his trust. The headman knew of the bull's friendship with a young boy from the village. The boy, unlike the others, saw the bull not as a monster, but as a magnificent creature deserving of respect and admiration. He would be their weapon, the key to their treacherous plan.
The boy's heart sank. The bull, his friend, was sick. He had to help, had to find the herb. The headman, sensing the boy's desperation, continued his charade. He fabricated a story about a strong rope needed to guide the bull through the treacherous forest paths.
He trusts you, boy. Only you can save him,
the headman said, placing a heavy rope in the boy's trembling hands. The boy, blinded by worry and his desire to help, believed the headman's lies. He ran towards the meadow, the weight of the heavy rope a symbol of the burden he now carried, the burden of betrayal. He found the bull grazing peacefully, oblivious to the web of deceit that was closing in. The boy, his voice thick with unshed tears, told the bull about the illness, about the journey to the forest, about the need for the rope. The bull, sensing the boy's distress, allowed the rope to be tied around his massive horns. He trusted the boy, his friend, implicitly. He had no reason to suspect the danger that lurked in the shadows. The boy, his heart heavy with guilt, led the bull towards the forest. Villagers emerged from their hiding places, their fear momentarily forgotten in the face of their perceived triumph. They surrounded the bull, their crude weapons glinting menacingly in the dappled sunlight. The bull stopped, his head raised, his nostrils flaring. He sensed the change in the air, the shift from trust to hostility. He let out a bellow, a sound that echoed through the forest, a primal roar of confusion and betrayal. The boy flinched, his eyes welling up with tears. He knew in that moment that he had been tricked, that he had betrayed his friend. The villagers, emboldened by their numbers and the element of surprise, began to tighten the ropes. They pulled the bull, his massive body resisting, towards the village. The boy watched in horror, his small frame trembling with the weight of his unwitting betrayal. He wanted to scream, to tell the bull the truth, to beg for forgiveness. but the words wouldn't come out. He was frozen in place, a prisoner of his own guilt and the horrifying spectacle unfolding before him. The bull, despite his immense strength, was outnumbered. He was pulled along, his hooves digging into the soft earth, his eyes searching frantically for the boy, for an explanation, for a reason behind this sudden act of cruelty. He saw only the boy's tear-stained face, the look of anguish and betrayal mirrored in his eye. The bull's heart, as vast as the meadow he roamed, shattered. He had been betrayed by the one creature he trusted, the one being who had seen the gentleness beneath his strength. They reached the village square. The villagers, their fear now replaced by a cruel sense of victory, cheered and jeered. The bull, his spirit broken, stood silently in their midst. He looked around at the faces contorted with hatred and fear, and a deep sadness washed over him. He had been betrayed by those who feared him, those who had never understood the language of the meadow, the language of peace and coexistence.
The headman approached, his face twisted in a grotesque mask of triumph. He raised his spear, ready to deliver the final blow, to extinguish the life of a creature he could never hope to control.
No, don't hurt him. You lied to me.
The boy, unable to bear the sight any longer, broke free from his trance. He ran towards the bull, throwing himself at the headman, his small fist pounding against the man's chest.
No, don't hurt him. You lied to me.
The headman, caught off guard, stumbled back, his moment of victory disrupted. He glared down at the boy, his face contorted with rage, but before he could strike out, the bull reacted. He let out a low growl, a sound that resonated through the square. It wasn't a roar of anger or aggression, but a sound of warning, a plea for the boy's safety.
The boy looked up at the bull, his eyes wide with fear and remorse. He reached out, his small hand trembling, and touched the bull's massive head. The bull closed his eyes, a sigh escaping his lips. He felt the boy's touch, a gesture of apology and love, and for a brief moment the chaos of the square faded away.
In that moment of shared understanding, of forgiveness given and received, a strange peace descended upon them. The villagers watched in stunned silence as the boy and the bull, two beings from different worlds, connected by a bond of trust and betrayal, shared a moment of tranquility amidst the storm. The moment was shattered as quickly as it had begun. The headman, his authority challenged, lunged forward, his spear aimed at the bull's heart. The villagers, caught up in the frenzy, took up their own weapons, their faces contorted with a mixture of fear and bloodlust.
The bull saw the flash of metal, felt the sting of pain as the spear found its mark. He stumbled, his legs giving way beneath him. He let out a low moan, a sound of pain that echoed the boy's cry of anguish.
The world spun, the sounds of the village fading into a dull roar. The boy's cries, filled with a pain far greater than any physical wound, reached him as if from a great distance. The bull closed his eyes, the image of the boy's tear-stained face etched into his memory. He had known betrayal, had felt the sting of human cruelty, but he had also known love, the pure and unconditional love of a child. And in that knowledge, in that final moment, he found a strange sense of peace. The bull's massive body lay still in the village square, a monument to fear and the devastating consequences of blind trust. The villagers, their bloodlust sated, slowly dispersed, their victory chants replaced by an uneasy silence. The boy remained, huddled beside the bull's still form, his small body racked with sobs. The headman's lies, the weight of his own betrayal, crushed him.
The meadow, once filled with the bull's quiet strength, stood empty, the silence broken only by the whisper of the wind. The villagers would rebuild, would try to forget the events of that day. But the memory of the bull, of his gentle strength and the tragic betrayal he suffered, would linger like a shadow over the village, a constant reminder of the price of fear and the enduring power of trust.